Hello. Hi. It is I, your solar teacher. Yeah, these are getting worse. These are worse. All right. So, firstly, we're gonna go over fragments. My plan is to go over all the other different key words, aspects, and specific uh skills that you have on solar per subclass. All right. So right now we're gonna quickly, as possible, go over the 835,000 fragments. Alright, so first up we have Ember of Ashes. Um, there's a lot of words, and I'm probably not gonna go over all of these because I'll like read it verbatim. You can pause the video if you really care about it. But basically, what Ember Ashes does is it gives you around a 50% increase to the amount of scorch that you are applying based off the base of the thing that's applying the scorch. And there are examples here, such as Skyburner's Oath. Each shot is 5, and then oh, never mind. Those are like the objections. So let me think of one. The perk Incandescent. Every time you get a kill, it gives 30 scorch. If you have Ember of Ashes equipped, then it will increase it by 15. So now you're doing 40 scorch, 45 scorch. I think they nerfed it to 40 because 45 was just too good for some fucking reason. But anyways, I digress. Um, yeah, so that's basically how that works. Ember of Beams, Solar Super Projectiles home in on enemies. I actually had to read that one because I don't fucking know it. That one's not really useful if you can aim, to be honest. Sounds cool, but it's not that good if you can aim. I think they put that in there because in previous iterations of solar subclasses, their supers had the ability to home in on enemies, and they didn't want to take that away. Ember of Benevolence is actually really good. Basically, if you apply Cure, Radiant, Restoration, um, I don't really know why they did healing. I don't know what else just quote unquote does healing anymore, but maybe that's like an old thing. Or if you revive allies, you will increase your base ability regeneration by 400% for 3 seconds. If you continuously trigger this, it will refresh itself, which is good. Um, this makes perks like Heal Clip, where you get a kill, you reload, you give yourself cure, and you give your teammates cure. That makes that really good. It makes another fragment later on that helps you give everybody radiant, makes that really good. It just helps you get your ability energy by just helping your teammates. It's nice. Feeds into like a support playstyle, which is another playstyle for um, solar. Um, Blistering is ignitions will give you ignition kills will give you ability energy. I need to test this, but I'm not sure if it's getting the ignition on the thing you're hitting because you don't always have to kill it to get an ignition, or if it means the people you kill after the ignition, like the actual ignition explosion or triggering it. I'm not sure. Either way, I almost never use this. Char, this one's good. Ignition supply scorch. Um, that's just good because if you're getting ignitions, you're causing scorch, and in most ways, where you cause one, you can cause the other, so you can chain. Um, yeah, there's using char. There's ways you can chain ignitions back to back and stuff, which is good. All right, combustion. Solar super kills cause ignitions and cause fire sprites to spawn. This is really good. For some reason, in Well of Radiance, if you do a damage with like a solar gun damage, it does apply. I mean, so if you're using a solo weapon, while you're in Well of Radiance, you will also blow them the fuck up in ignition, which is actually pretty cool. People don't use that a lot, but you can totally do that. It's pretty good. Ember of Empyrean, this is like bread and butter shit right here for solar subclasses. Um, if you get a solar kill of any type, then you will extend restoration and radiant effects. The buff cannot exceed 15 seconds, which is not super important because if it's an add dense area, which would be when you would want your radiant and restoration keywords, Then you just kill things with solar, and bam, you have infinite health and infinite damage buff, um, which is nice. All right, eruption. This leads to ignitions having a larger radius. This is nice. It's only good if you can get a bunch of ignitions though. Ember of Mercy, whenever you pick up a fire sprite, you give yourself restoration. If restoration is active, it will extend restoration. This used to mess up. It used to mess up your stuff, but it's good now. They stopped the bug. The bug used to be that if you had like 15, because 15 seconds of uh, restoration due to Empyrean, then when you picked up a fire sprite, it will start you over at like 2 or 3 seconds. So they were counterintuitive, but now they can work together if you want to, which is nice. Um, Ember of Resolve is grenade kills will give you one cure, cure times one. That's just nice. Means you don't have to necessarily use a healing grenade, which is cool. Even though healing grenades are really good. Killing scorched targets grant melee energy. This is really good on any kind of melee build whatsoever on Solar, and all of the melees on Solar are pretty good to some degree. Or at least all of the classes have a good melee, or two. Or three, maybe, even. Ember of Singeing is if things are scorched, you will get 300% increase to your class ability regeneration. I think the only class this is bad on is Titan, and that's just because Titan don't really have a reason to use their class ability for Solar all that much. But it's not terrible. It's just, you have to force a use into it, like an exotic or something. Ember of Solace. Restoration and radiant effects last 50% longer. This is just an ease of use thing. If you're struggling to have enough time to proc Ember of Empyrean, then having Ember of Solace will give you more time. Or if for some reason you don't want to have to chain and you just want to repeatedly acquire ways to get restoration and radiant, this will just give you more time to do so. Yeah, I typically don't use Solace and Empyrean together, but you could theoretically. Tempering. I think they thought this was gonna be better than what it is. Um, Solar weapon kill. Excuse me. Solar weapon kills grant 10 recovery for you and allies within 12.5 meters for 8 seconds. Stacks up to 3 times, which means that you can get 30 extra recovery, and you give that to your teammates as well. While Ember of Tempering is active, you get 20% more AE, which I don't know, is not all that useful in most places. And solo weapon kills spawn a fire sprite. The best use for this is if you purposefully ignore recovery on your solar subclass, and then you're gonna be getting solar kills anyway. Solar weapon kills would also be a good idea, so you might as well just go with that, and then you can get 30 free recovery for free, and you'll be able to spawn fire sprites, and then you can use those fire sprites to give yourself grenade energy, because fire sprites naturally give you grenade energy, and then you can run Ember of Mercy. So now, on top of the fact that you give yourself more recovery, you also are making the sprites, which will also give you restoration, which is nice. Alright, Ember of Torches. This is the one I was teasing earlier. Ember of Torches is whenever you get a melee hit, um, a powered melee hit to be specific, you and all your allies on that 8 meters will get radiant, which is nice. Who doesn't want to proc radiant, you know? Alright, then Ember of Wonder, which I'm trying to make bigger here, but it's trying to fight me. There we go. Killing an enemy within 2 seconds of each other with an ignition, so just get multiple kills at one time with the ignition, basically. Creates an orb of power. That's nice if you can get multiple kills on ignitions, but I don't think this is very good because they also gave it a cooldown, as if you could just constantly make ignitions, which typically you can't. I mean, in your super maybe, but then you're already making a bunch of orbs, so what's the problem? Anyways, I'm going to stop complaining here. So now that we've gone over all of the fragments, I want to now start going over specific subclasses. We're going to start with Hunter. and go over their aspects, their signature class abilities, so on and so forth. Ooh, yeah, I know. Video inception, but everybody calm down. It's all good, okay? So the first thing we're going to go over is going to be the hunters. We're going to go over the class-specific thing. The acrobat's dodge. As you can see in the video, in the background footage, you do a cool little dodge deal, and then it activates Radiant for you and allies within X amount of space. Now, why did that thing end? Why did that end? I didn't put it on loop. Yeah. So, I mean, fun? I don't know, man. It's because because of the different ways that you can actually proc this. I don't know how good this is. For everybody that's actually up to date with Destiny stuff, though, Prismatic has this, so that's gonna be really freaking good. But even then, like, you still have a way to activate it. So I don't know. They give you a lot of ways to activate this, so I don't know if it's worth your time, to be honest. All right, so the next one. Knock them down. This is the first aspect we're gonna go over. Knock them down has two functionalities. I think I only did capture footage of one of the functionalities, which is the neutral game functionality of if you get a kill with your melee ability while you're radiant, it will automatically refund your melee ability. And if you remember earlier, we went over dang, I don't remember it, but the fragment that whenever you get a melee hit, you automatically get radiant. It still works. It works the way you imagine. You throw your knife, and because you hit them, you get radiant, and then you kill them, and then you get the knife back. It's perfect. So you could just throw knives infinitely if you get kills, which is great. There is a bit of a delay. It's like a weird little thing on it. If you do it too fast, then it won't work. But yeah, it's really good. It has a nice chime noise that you can hear. It's still really good. Now, the super functionality is that it basically makes your supers better to some degree, right? Blade Barrage, you throw more knives, which means more damage and more explosions. On Golden Gun, the Deadshot, which is the one where you hit you shoot a bunch of different people. It gives you DR, gives you damage resistance, so you just don't die during it. And then the Marksman's, the Marksman's Golden Gun, the other GG. It gives you more time in the Golden Gun, which feels really good when you're trying to line up those headshots. Yeah. The next one would be on your mark. Let's make sure this one loops. On your mark. So you have two ways to activate this, right? You can either land headshot kills. I'm sorry, you can either land headshot kills, or you can use your dodge ability. Once you do either one of those things, you will get a stack for a kill, or all three per roll, and you can refresh this through headshots. It gives you a bunch of gun buffs, a bunch of non-damage gun buffs. You get reload speed, you get reload multiplier, which is just on top of the reload speed. You get handling. It's just makes your guns feel really, really, really good. And all you got to do is get headshot kills, which is nice. There's not much more to it, but it's a good consistency one. Also, it has one more. You can put one more fragment because it has 3 fragments than most. I think most just have 2. So that's a positive, right? Next one. This is the more exciting one, the one that people would care about more, I think. Gunpowder Gamble. You get these charges based off the number of solar kills you get. This could be solar weapons, solar ability kills, whatever. And you get a new grenade, which is basically just a grenade on a stick, which is hilarious. But you throw it, I even have it in slow motion here. You throw it, you can shoot it out of the air, which is nice. And the explosion causes wow, tongue tied, is an ignition, right? So everything that applies to ignition applies to the explosion from this grenade. Which is good and bad. You would think it'd be great all the time, but because it is an ignition, if you have something scorched already, then it will get rid of their scorch. So if you were looking for that damage over time for the scorch for whatever reason, then it will go away. But if you use the fragment Ember of Char, then the ignition will also spread scorch. So there's ways to work around it. It's probably the coolest one. It does have a weird bug where other people look at you and it looks like you have the grenade on you all the time after you use it once, which is weird and funny. But yeah. Other than that, there's not much more to it. It is really really cool though. Also, if you get a super kill, they give you like the entirety of the charges that you need to get a gunpowder gamble deal. So that's really nice, right? Okay, so that is all of the aspects, and that is your unique, um, is your unique, what's the word I'm looking for? Dodge, the unique dodge, a unique class ability. That's what I'm looking for. So now we're going to go over your supers. Okay, so you have Blade Barrage, which is its own. It's a standalone. This guy. So basically what you do is you get a massive amount of damage resistance. You probably want to jump in the air when you do it. And you just yeet fucking flaming, exploding knives at people, which is just cool in and of itself. This is good at both add clear and single target damage because of how fast it procs. So both of those are good. It is buffed by the knock 'em down aspect, which gives you more knives. So you have 20 knives instead of the 14. Yeah, it's just a really good super. It's really good for what you're trying to do. And PvP is good for as a shutdown super, as well as like a kill multiple things super. And PvE is good for add clear and single target. So it's a good super. It's a good one. Hunters are spoiled. They have a bunch of good supers. Alright, now this is Golden Gun Deadshot. Now, I did this one without putting on the fragment that every time you get a solar super kill, you cause an ignition. The reason why is because this super inherently, if you make an ignition while you have it out, then you will get a bullet back, which means that you can just shoot this infinitely as long as you are getting kills. Or at least you can have infinite bullets in, as long as you're getting kills with this thing. You get 6 shots. You don't really have to land a headshot or anything. You just shoot the guy and then you deal more damage. I'm pretty sure that Radiant does buff his damage. Yeah, it says it. Radiant buffs his damage, which is really cool. I don't know, that's about it really. Like, it's really good for add clear. It sucks at single target. That's not his job at all. You use this for add clear. You just shoot a whole bunch of things over and over, and if you have that fragment I spoke about a minute ago, then you can just shoot even more things, which is really cool. Alright, and then you have the other golden gun, Marksman. As you can see, headshot, 100. 168 headshot. Shoot him again, 219. The more headshots you get in a row, you get a buff called Line 'em Up, and you just do more headshot damage. That's really good at single target damage. Plus, if you every headshot will give you 2 orbs of power, and then kills, depending on the target, will also create orbs of power. So it's also really good at making orbs of power for no reason other than I land headshots. Get fucked. Radiant also buffs this thing's damage as well, which is probably why the damage multiplier jumped up. No. I have Radiant the whole clip, so cool. It is one of the best damage supers in the game, especially when you apply a specific exotic. The exotic converts all 3 of those shots into 1 shot, and you just annihilate whatever the f is in front of you. It's really good, especially on like bosses and stuff. You get a debuff and then shoot that thing. Man, it's probably hurting for health there if it's not dead. Yeah, again, all of the supers for almost all of the hunter supers are good. I can only think of like 2 of them that might need some help. Alright, so now we need to go over knives. Alright, so I think I got all the knives. We'll find out whenever I do this shit. But anyways, knife trick. This is when you're cosplaying Genji. Throw the knives, you throw like a fan of 3 knives. These knives, okay, so I didn't do that right. I'm trying here, okay? New to this shit. Anyways, the knives, they spread out, and they, if you can make them all hit on one target, you can get up to 90 scorch if you also have the fragment that increases the amount of scorch you do. Ember of Ashes, I believe. So you could throw one fan and get 90 scorch, which means you only need 10 more scorch to cause the ignition. So it's really good for that. If you have any other source of just a small amount of scorch, it's really good. It also does a ton of damage, so it's just good for that. I didn't know this. I'm reading this a little bit earlier. It does have a precision multiplier as well. So even if you land crits with this thing, it does more damage as well. So it's really good. I really like Knife Streak. Knife Streak is one of the better melees that they have here. All right. Lightweight. I probably didn't. Nope, I did loop this one. Okay. This one's benefit is it comes out fast. All right, so it's really, really, really quick. It does have a headshot multiplier. I guess they all have a headshot multiplier, which is good for them. Good for them. And then scoring a precision hit will grant radiant. Which is where they explode. I just put it on. Okay, my bad. Anyways, which did cause an explosion there, but that's like a fragment thing, so ignore it. Ignore that shit. Ignore that. Right? All it really does is it comes out fast and it gives you radiant. That's the things that's important here. And headshots do count for more damage, so you do want to try and land for aim for the head if possible. All right, the trickiest knife here, the explosive knife. You can throw it at the ground, it sticks to surfaces, and then if things get close, they blow up, which is nice. Also, when you just throw it at people, it will still blow up. It is really cool. It does have an exotic specific to it that makes it really good. But that's basically it. My God, dude. My God, I'm the worst YouTuber of all time. Yeah, so it does explode and deal damage, obviously, but like that's it, is the point I'm trying to make here. It doesn't do much more than that. The exotic does help it a ton, because the key aspect that it does is that if you hit something with it, and kill something, you're going to cause an ignition regardless of anything, which is nice. And it also makes you cause scorch with the knife, but yeah. It falls off in the in-game content because you got to get a kill first, but it's not terrible. You know, I like it. Could be a lot worse. All right, and the last knife here is the heavy knife. I know, somebody's gonna be ready to fight me about saying knife. Anyways, it comes out slower. It does do more damage. I will say that the 2 or 3 benefits that it gets for coming out slower are really good. So first of all, it has a higher headshot multiplier. Second, if you scorch anything, like at all, any type of scorch, if you hit them with this knife, they will ignite immediately. Which means that you don't need a lot of scorch. You just need to spread the scorch to cause these ignitions. And these ignitions will count as a kill in some instances, which means that if you are radiant, you will get your knife back. Also, headshot kills with this knife will automatically give you your class ability back. I think this was a ploy to try and get you to use Acrobat's Dodge, but again, if I could just throw the knife in the first place and get radiant, why do I need Acrobat's Dodge? I think the answer is that you don't. So, Gambler's Dodge for the win, because the melees on this class are really good. I believe that is everything that is specific to Hunter. So now we're going to move on to Titan. Yeah, let's do Titan next. Alright, I know, ooh, cool, behind the scenes stuff. Anyways, we're going to go over the Titan aspects first. First aspect, Consecration. You run, you slide, you melee, and then you throw a sheet of fire on the ground. Right? You press your melee button while in the air, you slam down, throw another sheet of fire on the ground. This will immediately cause an ignition, which is good, okay? This ignition should be, I'm not sure if they fixed it or whatever, but it should be tied to your melee damage as well. So if you have an exotic or some other way of boosting either your ability damage, which you do, we'll talk about that later, and or your melee damage specifically, then this thing will cause a massive ignition, okay? And anything inside of it will ignite, so you can do multiple ignitions at one time. It is very good. yeah, I really like it. I force myself into using it whenever possible. Also, the little spinny fire thing at the end is actually from an exotic, which also helps the super that does a similar thing. It just puts a little tornado at the end. All right. Soul Invictus. Now this thing is yeah, I mean, just look at it, okay? You make a well of fire on the ground. You just got to get a ability kill, or you have to kill some. Okay, there's a bunch of different ways, so I said just, but whatever. You need an ability kill. You need a kill on something that is already scorched through any other means. Doesn't have to be even from you. If your teammate scorches something and you kill it, then you can proc these. There is no cooldown from what I understand. And you can also trigger it from ignitions. But makes it a great pairing with the next aspect we're going to talk it. Get it together, Quinn. We're going to talk about. The main benefits of this is that while you're inside of the fire plume, that's what I'm going to call it here, the little fire spot, you get increased ability regeneration. You grant yourself restoration. You make your super drain slower, so you basically make your super last longer. I think this is better for throwing hammers than it is for burning maul, but again, we'll get to that in a minute. And it also does damage and applies scorch to targets. It does not apply a lot of scorch, which is disappointing because the previous iteration applied a ton of before they nerfed it, it did a bunch of scorch. Now it just basically exists to deal damage and kill like low level enemies, and on bigger targets it's just like a bunch of chip damage. Because again, if you can cause an ignition, you can put one on that target without killing it, so that's really nice. And that's its functionality. It's basically survivability and ability uptime, which is cool, really cool. Like nobody's mad about that. It's just you have other ways to do what it does. So if you wanted to just ignore this fragment, there's ways around it, which is cool, actually. I prefer it that way. And then our last aspect, Roaring Flames. Gonna get a lot of slow motion action in this one. Basically, solar ability kills and ignitions grant 1+ Roaring Flames. Each stack of Roaring Flames increases your ability damage. The first one's 20%, the next one's 44%, and the third is 73% ability damage increase. Apparently ability damage increase against combatants is reduced if you have Burning Fist or biotic enhancements. This was specifically to deal with the ridiculous solo ability of just throwing your freaking baby hammer in a boss's face and just melting them. Because biotic enhancements and Burning Fists are abilities that come from exotic arm pieces that basically just increase your melee ability. Yeah, it was really good. Now, people were disappointed with this at first because it didn't feel like it did much. You basically had to have an ability up for it to work, which means that it only worked with throwing hammer before they nerfed it, but we'll get to that later. So they added this cool thing, and I do actually think this is cool, where if you have Roaring Flames of any level, when you use your normal melee, it will count as a power melee hit, so that applies for different things. One thing it applies for is continuing to proc Roaring Flames to give you more Roaring Flames. It also applies Scorch to your melees. 30 Scorch at base, 40 with Ember of Ashes, which means that you can cause ignitions, which means that you could just stand in a boss's face, and as long as you can get your melees off fast enough, your base melees, you can forever have Roaring Flames, which means you can forever cause ignitions. So you could just shotgun melee them over and over and over and over again. It makes shotgun melee viable without having to use the freaking throwing hammer, which again is a bit of a disappointment, but whatever. Trying to get over it, I still don't think I have. Okay, next up, supers. Bam. Throwing hammer. Yes, that's a big wall of text. I'm very sorry. in general. Okay. First of all, big DR, big damage resistance. Okay, 90%, a lot of DR. You don't die with burning hammers. Second, you throw a bunch of fucking hammers at people, and those hammers explode into 3 like lava pools, I guess. And then those lava explosion deals also deal damage in an AoE. It's very, very good for ad clear, not so good for single target unless you use Sol Invictus, because if you use Sol Invictus, first of all, you will have more super energy, because if you pop your super while you're on the ground, you will create a sunspot at your location, which will allow you to throw more hammers. It also makes you throw hammers faster, and when you land those hammers, they will also create sunspots, whether you get a kill or not, which means that you can add ignitions to the damage fold. Now, does this make this super better than the other super that we're going to talk about in a minute, Burning Maul, for single target damage? No, but it makes it viable for single target damage, which means this is the most versatile of the two. It doesn't do anything other than what you think. Okay, it just does exactly what it looks like it does. You just throw the fuck out of hammers and blow shit up, which is really cool. Now, we're gonna move on because there's not much more to speak on here. To Burning Maul. Big boy hammer, giant hammer, okay? What it does is it lets you spinny spin. The spin hits a couple times, and if you do enough spins, then you will make a fire cyclone, as they call it here. It's a tornado, bro. It's a fire tornado. And a fire tornado will sit on the target and deal a bunch of damage. The other option is to just slam your hammer directly on the ground, which will make a trail of fire, I think 3 trails to be specific, that will aggressively track toward a target, blow up, and create that fire tornado we just spoke about. The Cyclone will apply Scorch, which means you can get ignitions from this, but it's almost no Scorch at all, so don't know if it's really worth your time. This is the big boy single target damage, because you can spinny spin on something for a very long time, or you can say screw whatever is in front of you and just do the slammy slam, which will also do a ton of damage at one time. The exotic that I typically wear on my Solar Titan will make the super be a one and done super, and will slam one time, but increase the out of the damage. Just crank it up, crank it really high up, so that you can do a bunch of burst damage with one time with this super. This is one of the cooler supers. To be fair, I think that the Titans get all the cool supers. Yeah, it's hard to argue with Giant Hammer that does boom stuff, you know? So, last things to speak on would be the melees. Hammer Strike, as you can see there, it's basically just the same thing as a shoulder charge, if you know anything about that from previous games or whatever, or previous iterations of this. You just run, and then if you melee, you don't have to be in the air per se, but if you're running and then you melee, then you will pull out your hammer and hit the fuck out of somebody with it. If you're in the air, then you'll just knee them to death, which is also hilarious. Getting a kill will, getting a kill will cause the thing you killed to fly backwards, and then its body will ignite magically. That ignition will then, deal damage to others, which is a cool way to blow shit the fuck up. You can use the melee without hitting anybody and use that as a movement tool, but Bungie got mad about that shit in PvP because it was making them too fast, I guess. And now it does take a bit of your super energy, like, not super, your melee energy. It's like 15%, it says up here. Which typically at 30, which is your base amount for any of your cooldowns, would take about 7 seconds to come back. But if you're using this ability, you're gonna want to keep using this ability, so you're definitely gonna have more than that. I wouldn't worry about it too much. If you have anything that'll increase your melee recharge to any degree, then you will basically almost never have this be a problem. Yeah, I like it. Oh, if you don't kill the thing, then it will do 40 Scorch, 60 with Ember of Ashes, which means it is a good source of Scorch as well. Now, the final ability is Throwing Hammer. You literally just yeet a little tiny hammer, kind of like your super, but not anywhere near as strong, at the enemy. Yes, I said it like that on purpose. Shut up. The technique with this is to either get really close to them or to just throw it at their feet. Even if it bounces once or twice, I think even, it'll still deal full damage as long as it hits the target. It does not do any Scorch. It is supposed to be, I think, more of a supportive thing for yourself, because it does grant you Cure. So if you get a hit and then you pick it up, it grants you Cure. Previously, you did not have any issues with the moment that you picked up the hammer, you just had the hammer back, but now it takes, I don't know, 2 or 3 seconds. Yeah, a little bit of time. It looks like it's 1.4 seconds. So a fixed amount of regen. It takes 1.4 seconds before you can throw your hammer again. Yes, this infuriates me, but I understand why they did it. It was melting bosses. Like, actually, just, you could run up and just repeatedly throw it over and over. Which does make me sad. If for some reason you can't pick up your hammer, it will explode like a grenade after, what, 10 seconds on the ground, says here. Neat, but, and I'm sure some people still use it, but I'm gonna let you know now, that whole throwing your melee, throwing your hammer build thing, that died to me the moment that they nerfed it. So I just use the other one because it's cooler than this one now, basically. And that's just how I play Titan. Whatever feels the most Titan, that's what I'm using. And I feel like running and kneeing a nigga in the face is much more cool than walking up to them, breathing their breath, and throwing a hammer at them and waiting to die, or hopefully not die, and throw another hammer to then wait to die and breathe their breath. Hate it. So, Titans do not have a class-specific change for solar. They just have their normal barricades, the rally and the tower and barricades. So nothing crazy here, which means we're up to our last subclass. Woo! Go to Warlock. All right, so we're gonna go with the Warlock aspects. First one here, Heat Rises. Okay, basically, you eat your grenade. Once you eat your grenade, you can jump in the air, and you will float. So you kind of stay in the air. Your initial grenade hit is worth 15 seconds worth of Heat Rises. After that, additional, I believe it's just additional kills in general while in the air will stack up more Heat Rises while you're in there. What Heat Rises really does for you, other than help you float, is that it gives you airborne effectiveness. The float is like near indefinite, so like almost you could stay in the air almost forever. To be honest, that's about it. That's about all it does, really. It also interacts with damn it, Phoenix Dive, which is something we're gonna go over later. It is the class-specific class ability, or subclass-specific class ability for Solar Warlock, where you dive down to the ground and you grant you and nearby allies cure. Well, if you have Heat Rises, if you do that same thing, you will also give yourself, I don't know if you give teammates, but I know you give yourself restoration times 2. I believe you just give your teammates restoration times 1, but whatever. Also, eating your grenade will automatically give you a stack of cure. I believe if you eat specifically a healing grenade, you will also get restoration. Um, so yeah, it's very strong to just eat the grenade, just in general. Just eating the grenade is good. Then using the class ability combined with the grenade will give you a burst in yourself, a burst of a bunch of healing. Also, doing this nearby your teammates is a great way to be supportive without necessarily having to babysit them, which then builds into my favorite build for this, which involves those turning wheels to be a battle angel, a battle medic. It's really cool. Oh, also passively, whenever you jump in the air, you will get melee energy per kill based off the type of enemy you are killing while you're in the air. This even counts if you just take a little hop and kill something to some degree, which means you basically have infinite melee energy as well, which means you could just ignore that on your armor if you would like, because you just got to get kills while you're in the air, and you can stay in the air near on indefinitely, which is nice. Okay, next one, Icarus Dash. This one bothers me because I feel like it should just be put into something else and you should have a whole nother ability. But basically, it just lets you dash. About 8 meters. It helps in Daybreak, which is super we're gonna go over soon. Which just means that you dash. Although it takes energy to dash in the super. And while you're out of the super, it has a cooldown. Like if you use it once, you have a 4-second cooldown. If you have heat rises available when you use it, then you can use it twice, but then you have a 5-second cooldown after that. If you wait the correct cooldown duration in between using two of them, then you don't have to wait the cooldown at all. Which is just to say that if you space it out enough, then you can just use it once or twice and you're fine. Also, apparently if you're in the air and you get kills with your super, you will grant yourself cure. If you have Icarus Dash. Oh, if you're just in the air, actually. Okay, so I didn't know this. I feel like this is something they buffed. I gotta experiment with this one, actually. So this is pretty cool. Apparently if you're in the air and you get enough kills, then you'll grant yourself cure automatically. Which means that it also has a way to heal yourself. Which is nice. So this is just a more selfish version of what my build that I was doing before, where it heals everybody. So that's cool, I guess. Yeah, and then the final aspect, Touch of Flame. The most complicated one. Now, it does adjust, what, four grenades? But only 2 of them have visual changes that I think are necessary to be represented through my very, very amazing editing skills. So first of all, it buffs healing grenades. Instead of granting the plus 1 cure, it does plus 2 cure, and it also gives you restoration. And this is just when you throw the grenade, because the way that a healing grenade works is you just kind of throw it at the ground or at yourself. If you throw it at the ground and you're like next to it, you will get cure. If it leaves like a little bubble behind, if you run up to the little bubble and collect it because you weren't near the splash, this is you or your teammates, then you will only get the restoration from it. So yeah, it just makes that better. You get restoration times 2 instead of just regular restoration. It also has some benefits to eating the grenade. Like if you eat the grenade via heat rises, then I think those are buffed as well. But anyways, fusion grenade, firebolt grenades. These suck regardless, but basically firebolt grenades, you throw them on the ground and they just send out a streak of fire, which does almost no scorch and does almost no damage. They're supposed to be good because they have a really low cooldown, but get the fuck out of here. If there's a grenade that needs a buff, that's the one right there. And don't just make it an exotic. It needs a baseline buff. Thing sucks. Alright. Anyways, as if somebody from Bungie cares about my opinion. Solar grenades. These are the ones that are the most benefited, I think, from Touch of Flame. With the perfect timing here. As you can see, when you throw the solar grenade, they start spitting out these little magma balls, and they deal damage. Because the way solar grenades work is if there are 2 solar grenades in a certain area, you will only get dot damage from 1 solar grenade. But those magma orbs do not care, and they do a pretty good amount of damage, which means that throwing multiple grenades on a single target is important now. Why would throwing multiple grenades be important, Quinn? You can only throw 1 grenade at a time unless you have a class item, unless you have some way to get more than 1 grenade. Exactly. So, what is it called? The grenades I have on right there. If you get a melee kill, then you will have a bunch of grenade regeneration, specifically for solar grenade, which allows you to carpet the area in solar grenades, which was good by itself before. But with the addition of Touch of Flame, now it is also good at burning bosses because the magma orbs will hit the boss over and over and over again, as well as the boss taking dot damage. So very good versus bosses. It also makes your grenade last a little bit longer, by the way. The solar grenade. Fusion grenades. The way that they work typically is you throw it once, they explode once, they scorch, and job done, whatever. With Touch of Flame, those same grenades now also explode twice. They do the same amount of scorch each time. I do not remember the amount of scorch, but with 2 grenades, you can cause a ignition, which is really good. And as you can see, those explosion radii, it's really good. So, very, very good grenade. With a certain chess piece, it was the DPS meta for Warlocks for a while, which I loved because it meant that I was not just a whale lock. I could also do DPS, but of course they nerfed that into the ground instead of actually nerfing the problem, which was well anyways. I'm not salty. Okay, maybe a little salty. And then this, we're going to bring up Hellion. Now, this is something that is new that's coming out in the final shape. They've told us about it, so we kind of know what's going on with it. But basically, if you cast your Rift, you get a solar buddy, just like you got all those other buddies that apparently just shoots fire at things and scorches them and deals a bit of damage, which is good. We take those W's. Free solar damage now. I wonder how it interacts with all the other buddies. Because right now, Arc Buddy will rotate around Void Buddy. So I wonder how they're going to make that work. Anyways, it seems to be pretty good based off the footage that we've seen. Nothing crazy, but just getting solar scores to just be thrown out everywhere is pretty good. And it looks like it applies well, okay, they don't know yet, but it looks like it may be applying a good amount of scorch. So, cool. Ooh, I know. Spicy. Live footage. Nah, it's really just because I'm a failure. And somehow I forgot to add this, but just give me a second. I got you guys. So there is also this really cool thing. Oh, hold on. Let me grab a thing. Hey, look, quick pause. We can do this. Bam. Now you can read this while I'm going somewhere where I can set this up real quick. So, dude, still can't do. God, Jesus. Still consider sanctuary, I guess. All right, cool. So, you have Phoenix Dive. Phoenix Dive is just a change in your class ability because normally you have a Rift, right? But now with Phoenix Dive, you just dive to the ground, you give yourself and nearby allies cure. That is it. And as you can see, I was not prepared properly for Phoenix Dive, but look, this has actually been a lot of work for me, okay? I have kids, I got needs. Anyways, now we're gonna go over the melees, because there's like 2 types of melees. Why are you so far down? Alright, cool. So, there are 2 melees. There's Celestial Fire, the one you just seen, and there's Incinerator Snap. Celestial Fire, you spit out like, what, 4? 3, yeah, 3 Solar Blasts. It goes out at range, has pretty good tracking, and they apply in total somewhere around 30 Scorch total. Not individually they do less Scorch, but if you hit all 3 of the things, then you do like 30 Scorch plus whatever you get from the ashes to acids. Right? I don't really like this super that much in PvE. And PvP is good just to tag somebody to be sure that they get scorched, right? But that's about it. Um, I highly prefer Incinerator Snap. One, it's cooler. Two, if you aim it down at the ground, you can immediately scorch a target in front of you because you throw out multiple flares, or okay, they call it sparks here. Multiple sparks of fire, and each one of those will apply X amount of scorch. I'm not even going to go over how much scorch it does, because if you just walk up on something and aim at the floor and snap, then they are ignited, which is good for you 95% of the time. That's why I think Incinerator Snap is better. It does have much more limited range, but again, it's a melee, so it kind of makes sense. Now, we're going to go over the supers, because yes, there's two supers, even though people swear the only one that exists is this guy. Why are you so far down? Anyways, Well of Radiance. What you do is you get your sword, you slam that thing into the ground, and now there is a giant well of you don't die. And I mean this about as literally as possible. It's borderline impossible for you to die in this thing. Also, because for some reason they felt like you needed to buff it more, you can't be frozen. Like, stasis doesn't apply to you inside of this well. Crazy. Going over the number of things that this thing does is going to be ridiculous, so bear with me, okay? First of all, it gives you enough healing per second that it doesn't matter if you've ever played Overwatch. It's just Zenyatta's healing. Okay. Give me a second. My bad, was getting myself shot in the background in the gameplay, and it was bothering me. Yeah, enough healing per second to not give a damn about anything at all, so damage doesn't apply to you, basically. It gives you a bit of damage resistance, which also reinforces the whole damage doesn't apply to you thing. It lasts for 30 seconds. The moment you throw it down, you do 40 scorch to anything in the general area, plus 20 if you're running ashes to assets. It gives you a 25% damage increase, which also is basically, it's a bootleg version of Radiant. Now I say this because it's definitely not Radiant, because if you had Radiant before, if you had like Golden Gun and then you walk into a well, your damage increase disappears. So it's not actually Radiant, but it does everything that Radiant does while you're in the well. I don't know, I haven't made a video game, but I did go to school for computers. I know this stuff can be difficult. Also, for some reason, solar damage at all inside of this well, if you are the caster, will count as super ability damage. So if anything that applies in that realm helps here. So if you have what I think is Ember of Combustion, and you get a solar kill, that kill will cause ignitions, which also crazy. It also gives all of your guns that didn't previously have a champion stun anti-barrier, because why the fuck not? You know, just give it every fucking thing at this point. I believe that's everything. This thing is fucking ridiculous. It was ridiculous forever. Encounters are built around this. Like, they're gonna be nerfing it in the final shape. I'm scared because, not because I only want to use this, but because all of the previous activities that basically require you to have a well at any like high level of difficulty either have to be toned down or adjusted to some degree, because if not, then it's gonna be bordering on impossible to complete those tasks unless there's a buff to something else. Yeah. Oh, also, if you get solar kills while in the well, you will create more orbs of power, because again, it's considered a super kill at that point, and whenever you drop a well, you will automatically drop 3 orbs of power. I mean, again, this thing does every fucking thing, okay? Just literally everything is bananas. A way to balance this that they were going about was, if you don't have a lot of resilience, then the sword can be damaged, and damaging the sword is the way for the opponents to break it. This really only helps in PvP. which is hilarious to me, because this thing is not that good in PvP. It is very good for what you want it to do, which is to secure rounds at the end of like trials or something. But in PvP, you're just people are only going to use it in those sort of situations. You're not gonna. This isn't like a universal thing like it is in PvE, where people don't even know what the hell the other super is. Also, enemies don't target the sword. I mean, I know that they have that in the code because they will target stasis crystals. If you make a stasis crystal next to an enemy, then they will target it and shoot it and hurt themselves. So I know that you can make them target it, but I guess it would feel really bad if they just shot your sword and killed it. Melee targets have a pretty good time against it. Well, melee bosses to be specific, because regular melee targets will still just melee you, and melee bosses normally have a stomp mechanic where it hits you and your sword, which can fuck you up. But even with that being in consideration, if you're running PvE, you're trying to get to 100 resilience anyway, because it gives you a base damage reduction that is basically necessary for the game. So, lots of explanation for this thing is busted, and if you're running solar, you're almost always going to be needing to run this. But there is hope at the end of the tunnel with the final shape hopefully doing an elegant nerf to this, making it not the most important PvE super in the game. So now we bring up the super that nobody remembers, the ugly stepchild. Daybreak. You jump in the air, that same sword that you used earlier to throw on the ground, you whip it out and you throw flame, I don't know, balls, not really balls, you just throw flames at niggas, alright? It's really crazy, alright? It's really cool, you know, it sucks that you don't get to use it a lot. Each swing does take away super energy, which is kind of how that works for all of your supers. You get a big damage reduction while you have the super. Icarus Dash, if you have that as an aspect on, you can boost yourself around, but that does take away your super energy, but it doesn't have a cooldown after that. Oh, I didn't know this here at the bottom, but I guess that makes sense. If you activate Heat Rises and then use Phoenix Dive, which is your class ability, which does apply if you're in the air with this thing, you will slam down. Slamming down will do a bunch of damage, and it scorches only if you have Heat Rises available, which would apply a different way for you to be able to scorch things, which is good, because the swings also scorch. Do they scorch? Okay, no. The swings of the sword only scorch if you have a specific exotic on, which buffs the super anyway. Sadly enough, I do still believe that the super was much stronger before the whole 3.0 rework, because it used to basically just make every swing just dealt more damage, and now it just deals scorch, which can eventually cause ignitions, which is not as strong, you know. Why nerf the thing that nobody was using anyway? I don't know. Anyways, good super. It is okay for false damage if you have this specific exotic. I believe it's called Dawn Chorus. Otherwise, it is better for ad clear. But there's a lot of supers for ad clear. There's a lot of things for ad clear. It's kind of lackluster. You kind of want a little bit more from it. That's what I get out of this thing. And there you have it. My hour-long solar bonanza. After already going over other specifics about solar, you now know literally everything about solar. The reason why I'm doing this and going to continue to do this for all of the other subclasses is, one, it goes into my Discord so that I can then point people toward that instead of me having to explain it over and over. I have a lot of friends who need a lot of help. And we're also having Prismatic coming out in the final shape. Prismatic basically blends all of these things together, so getting a base understanding of how these things work individually will help you with Prismatic when you're kind of jigsawing all of this shit together. Hopefully you enjoy the video.